The live is going to start right now, so we'll start.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining Dr. Dooley and me for Drop the Mic 2020 Facebook Live. And we know it is a Friday evening and a lot, good doctor,
yes,
is happening all over our country and the world, and people are feeling some type of way. And we're going to have some discussions tonight. Hopefully, everybody has pen and pad, or they have the iPad or some device with them to take some notes. Some of us like to take notes still old-fashioned, Doc, and other people take it right on their devices. But this Drop the Mic 2020 is an opportunity for us to not only have dialogue, but to educate, to open minds, and hopefully give people the tools that they need to be activists in their own right in their community, especially when it comes to how our money is spent. How do you feel about that, Doc?
I feel excited about that, especially during the time of this pandemic when people are suffering so much. We really do need to be talking about reallocating some of these funds to help the people right here at home, and not using those funds for weapons of mass destruction, not using those funds to send planes to fly over to thank our workers who have no mask and no gowns and no gloves. How about you save that gas money, you save that money to fly planes overhead, and you know, you get us some protective equipment that we need. So we definitely need this conversation now more than almost ever.
Talk about that. And so you can join us every single week. There will be a Drop the Mic Live where we will have some fantastic guests. We have other guests forthcoming. Usually we have Drop the Mic on Thursdays. This week, doing something a little different, a little special. So we're doing it on a Friday night. So thank you so much for joining us. Please make sure that you follow us on Facebook at Drop the Mic 2020. If you're just tuning in and you're not really linked to Facebook, please do that. And then on Twitter is Drop the Mic 2020. Join us, follow us on Twitter, stay involved and engaged. You get lots of information from following us both on Facebook and also on Twitter about how your money is being spent, how you can get involved. And really being educated about the situation really is the best place to start.
Knowledge is power. Absolutely.
Knowledge is absolutely power. For our first debut, that we had Ben Cohen himself was on with me, and we talked, the Minister of Ice Cream as we know him, and we really talked about what put him on this journey and how he has been doing this work for a very long time in terms of being an activist and somebody who led a corporation with a consciousness.
Yes.
Ben & Jerry's had a social consciousness, and it can be done. You can be both profitable, you can do well, do good, and do well at the same time. And certainly Ben and one of the co-founders of Ben & Jerry's, and Jerry is absolutely fantastic as well. Those are the dynamic duos, but they did prove by that business model that you can do both, do good and do well. Yeah, so very excited about that. So some of our other guests that we're going to have on, we're looking to have Naomi Klein on to talk about how the environment, the Green New Deal, and how some of these monies could be allocated for that. Talking about infrastructure reform. We're going to have an expert on all things Pentagon. And what we really are doing is distilling this down to everyday language to make sure that you see very clearly the correlation between how our money is spent and how it could be spent for issues that will better the lives of everybody in this country. I do want to remind you that it is, in fact, our money. I want you to say that with me, even though we can't see you or hear you, but mouth it with us. It is our money. It's our money, so don't forget about that. And all levels of government that operate based on tax dollars, our taxes, should actually listen to the stakeholders.
Yes.
And we are the stakeholders. So we have to check the books. And that's what we're talking about right now, talking about where our money goes on the federal level with regard to the military industrial complex. So for all the minds, inquiring minds who wanted to know, drop the mic, what do they mean by that? In this instance, it's twofold. It's dropping the mic by telling the truth, but it's also dropping the mic, i.e. military industrial complex. How about that? Yeah. How clever is that? I don't know who thought of that, Ed or Ben, but it's clever. I just want to throw that on out there. So there we are. So welcome again as more people are joining us on this Friday night. It is yours truly, Senator Nina Turner, rolling with the doctor herself, Dr. Victoria Dooley, who is an MD, because there are PhDs too, Doc. I think, let's go and break this out. She is an MD, just truly great. She is from the Chicago. She's from the Detroit, Michigan area. Got Chicago on my mind. She is from Detroit, Michigan, and she was a national surrogate for Bernie 2020. She is absolutely fabulous in every single way. She's an activist, a mother, a wife, and just an overall badass.
Yes.
That is what she is. And I am so happy for her to be here tonight. We're going to talk about dropping the mic in regards to universal health care and how some of that money that we spend on the Pentagon could definitely be spent to help us have universal health care in the United States of America. Let me remind you of some of the stats. We spend more money in the Pentagon or military than the 7 other nations combined. Those nations like China and Saudi Arabia. Hello, somebody, the UK, France, etc., etc., etc. Part of the discretionary budget in 2019, it was about a $1.19 trillion.
Oh, with the T, trillion.
With the T. Hello, somebody. And 727 billion with a B of those dollars went towards the Pentagon. And it did not go towards helping our veterans. We have a lot of homeless veterans in this country. Good doctor. It did not go to help the people who are actively serving in the military right now. As we know, many of them are being paid starvation wages. Some of them have to be supplemented. They have to go on assistance, which should not be reality in the United States of America. See, so it's not going to any of that. It's going to defense contractors. About 5% of that budget, that discretionary budget, that overall budget, that $1.19 trillion, only 5% of it goes towards education. Another 5% goes to health, housing, community and housing. Think about that. I want you to wrap your mind around that just for a little bit. So, Houston, Ohio, California, Michigan, we have a problem. But the beautiful thing about problems is that we can solve those problems. There is promise in the problem. So let's talk about why universal health care is so vitally important. And then at some point, Dr. Dooley and I certainly recognize what is going on in this country, and we too have very heavy hearts about it. And we will get to that as well. We're not gonna sit here and have we're gonna drop the mic in several ways. Yeah. We wanna acknowledge head on what is happening in Minnesota, what happened in Kentucky with Ms. Taylor, what happened with Mr. Cooper, thank God he didn't get killed, in New York, what has happened since the inception of this country, still happening in the 21st century, where Black people's lives are not valued. So we're gonna talk about that. We will. Doc, we're gonna drop the mic on the military industrial complex first, and then we will get to the heavy of the heaviest issues happening right now. Good. So let's talk, why should this country invest? Why should the stakeholders of this country care about investing their money in universal health care?
Oh, several reasons. First of all, the ones that would be more of interest to them, the stakeholders, is it actually saves money. Study after study has proven a universal healthcare system will save money. It is not going to cost us more. And when you think about it, you think about the system that we have now. If you have a chronic illness like chronic kidney disease and you need to be on dialysis, you might have no insurance. But once you have chronic kidney disease, you can apply for Medicare and you can get a Medicare and then you would be covered. So you're going to pay to fix a problem once a problem gets severe and expensive, but it would actually save you money to pay for healthcare for life so that you can get the patients the care that they need, control their blood pressure, control their diabetes. Let's stop the problems that cause a kidney failure so they never end up on dialysis, because dialysis is not cheap. So Medicare for all, it's a hard concept to think about how much money we spend in the US and we don't get a lot for it. And so kind of wrap your head around, wait a minute, you're telling me that we can take care of everybody and pay less? That's exactly what we're telling you. We're getting rid of the profiteering. We pay more for prescription drugs than any other nation in the world. We pay more for prescription drugs. That's why people are going over to Canada or they're going to Mexico. There was a company, I forgot what state it was. It was cheaper for this company to fly their employees to Mexico, pay for them to have a little vacation in Mexico and pick up them prescriptions and come back home. It was cheaper to fly them to Mexico and give them a vacation than it was to get their prescriptions here in the United States. So yes, 101% Medicare for all is going to save us money. I'm more concerned about it saving lives because it's going to do exactly that. And then when the next pandemic occurs, because there will be another one, with climate change and global warming and what we're doing to our environment and our world, there's going to be another pandemic. And so when the next pandemic comes, we don't have to be arguing about, are we going to cover care for the pandemic? Are we going to cover the vaccine when we come up with the vaccine for whatever the new bug is? Everybody will be just safely assured that it's going to be covered. If people lose their job, they won't have to worry about losing their healthcare coverage. When you lose your job, there's plenty to worry about. Feeding your family, keeping the roof over your head. The absolute last thing you should have to worry about is when you have the funds to take care of yourself when you get sick. And that is the way they do it in every other industrialized nation in the world. And they don't have to spend as much money on the military as we do. And they actually get more for their people. So it's possible. And it's the right damn thing to do. Doc.
It is, Doc. I mean, look, you said it. And when you talked about our prescription drugs, also, we pay more for our health care in this country, and we don't get better outcomes than other industrialized nations. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct. Medicare, the way it exists, is not a perfect system. But when we're talking about a Medicare for all single payer system, we're talking about improving upon the existing Medicare we have. But one thing Medicare does good is contain costs. They spend a lot less on administrative overhead than the private insurers do. If somebody has Medicare and I need to get them a special type of imaging, CAT scan, MRI, you know what I do? I write them the order, they take the order, they go get it. But with these other insurance companies, I have to get on the phone and argue with people who are not doctors, not nurses, to try to plead my patient's case for why they need the care that I, as a doctor, say that they need. And so you have to pay those people. And yes, everybody needs a job. And when we talk about transitioning to Medicare for all, we talk about a just transition where we make sure that those people are transitioned to other employment. But we waste so much in administrative costs, red tapes. And at the end of the day, these healthcare CEOs, their whole bottom line is to fatten their profits. There have been people who worked in healthcare industries and they came out and they've been outspoken. And there's something called, appeals process or prior authorization process where we're trying to fight the insurance to cover something. And there's been people who work for these healthcare company CEOs who just flat out said, we don't even read the appeals. We don't even read them. We just stamp denied on them. Because at the end of the day, their duty is to their shareholders, not to the patient. So if they can save a buck, at the end of the day, that's all they're in it for. And Medicare for all, it empowers patients and doctors to have a better relationship. The relationship is between us, the patient and the doctor. We don't have this middleman telling us what we can and cannot do.
And the system as it exists right now props up based on what you shared. The insurance industry is really the boss, not you as the doctor, and not the patient, the insurance industry. And we pay a private tax right now. And we talked a lot about that we did a private tax of co-pays, deductibles, and premiums on top of what your employer pays and what you pay, in the hopes that you will have the health care that you need. And oftentimes you may or may not, depending on what happens to you, have the health care that you need. And although the ACA did some wonderful things, it empowered the insurance companies to continue to have the power that they have. In other words, it did not change the system. Pre-existing conditions, that was, a step in the right direction, and also allowing young people to stay on their parents' insurance until they were 26. But the 26-year-old is going to be 27, 28, 29 at some point. And we know that when young people are starting off, they might not automatically get that dream job or that type of job. And especially when we think about the millennials who really suffered during the Great Recession. Those were they were college students and just coming out of college and didn't have that job and had to go back, in many cases, if they had a parent's home to go and live with their parents. They suffered economically from that. So some magic number of 26 just doesn't make any sense to me, but maybe that's the mama in me, Doc. I don't know.
It doesn't. And not only that, S&T, but when you go away to college, because we have so many different health insurances, your parents might have a plan that's great in the state of Michigan. But let's say you go away to college in Colorado and you have this weird plan that's a wonderful plan in Michigan, but not a lot of doctors accept it in Colorado. So I've had so many students go away to college and they come back and their mental health or their physical health is suffering. And when I ask them why, you have insurance, I couldn't find anybody who accepted my insurance out there because it's a predominant insurance in the state of Michigan, but it's not a predominant insurance there. Yeah. Why should that happen? You should be able to travel across all of these states and know that you are going to be able to find somebody to care for you and give you the same care that you would get in your home state. It makes no sense to have all these restrictions and all these variations between plan to plan from state to state.
Good God, and the paperwork that you as a doctor and your staff, we've had many conversations about that. And then also the consumer, how they have to figure out what is what. Are they in network, out of network?
Exactly. And that leads to surprise bills, and medical bills are one of the leading causes of bankruptcy. And, the insurance companies, they play these games. Let's say that some place is in network. Let's say it's a leading cancer facility and it's in network, but something bad happens. A lot of their members have the misfortune of having cancer. And so now a lot of their members are going to this leading cancer institute. You know what that health insurance is going to do? They're going to just decide overnight that leading cancer institute is no longer going to be in network. And so then you're going to be bombarded with all these surprise bills. So they monitor this stuff. If people are overutilizing the care, their health care, they're going to either restrict your networks and give you surprise bills, or they're going to raise your premiums next year. And that's what some people don't realize. Some people who say they don't want to pay for somebody else's health care, which is ridiculous in so many other levels. But you don't understand, we're paying for it now. And your premiums, when you don't use it, where do you think that money goes? And not only that, when somebody is not insured and they go to the hospital or they go to the emergency room and they're supposed to be taken care of, they're not always given the best care. But if they're uninsured and they go to the ER, there's a law, they have to take care of them. Who do you think pays for that? The people who have health insurance and our premiums. If the hospitals are giving too much care to people who are uninsured, they're going to have to raise the fees on the people who are insured. So when you have a large percent of people who are not insured and they are utilizing emergency health care, the burden of the cost falls back on us. So we're already paying for our taxes. We're already not getting enough for our taxes. Let's just reallocate some of those funds for the benefit of all of us.
And invest it the right way, because we can certainly get better health outcomes. Medicare for All is actually not only the morally right thing to do, but it's also the economically right thing to do, as you brought up a little early. So it's a win-win. So why not help to supplement some of that by dropping the mic, the military industrial complex? We could use some of that $727 billion and put it towards ensuring that we have universal health care. Now, we're going to take some questions that are coming up. So let's see what we have. We have Debbie says, here whenever my Sanders sisters call. Oh, okay, I got it. Here whenever my Sanders sisters call. People's budget is created every year and it is ignored, not anymore. Amen to that, Debbie. There is a people's budget, and part of that budget includes the Green New Deal,
Yes.
Medicare for all, education, childcare. Hello, somebody. Those things that
frustrates me with some conservative type people not saying on. They're like, oh, poor people need to work harder. They need to work more. First of all, it's a myth. People are essential workers who are on the front line. They work harder than a lot of us who are able to sit at home and not go. So that's a myth. But not only that, okay, well, you want certain people to work more. How about we give them health care? If they are guaranteed that they have somebody to take care of their children, that frees them up to work. Oh no, they don't want to do that. That's socialism. So how am I supposed to work more when I do work, I don't even make enough money, not only to take care of myself, but I don't make enough money to pay for childcare. So it's like, you can't have it both ways. You either want people to live their fullest lives and you want to give them the help to do that, or you don't, and you need to shut up complaining. So these things are for the benefit of society as a whole. You can't expect somebody to get by on a minimum wage. It is just not possible. There's no place in this country where you can afford a 2-bedroom apartment on minimum wage. So where is the distinction between minimum wage and slave wage? Where is it?
Absolutely. And we are a hegemon nation. We have the money. It's not like we're a poor nation. We can afford to pay people a living wage. And because of COVID-19, we really have found out very clearly who truly are the essential workers. It's not the hedge fund managers. Yeah. It is the grocery store clerk. It is your healthcare professionals. It is the sanitation workers, yes. Both those who pick up our waste and also those who pick up the waste in hospitals and cleaning buildings and keeping us safe. It's the person that's working at the gas station.
Yes.
Hello, somebody. So the real essential workers deserve to be essentially taken care of. So we got to do that. That's why we're trying to drop the mic here, military industrial complex. Let's go and swing some of that money on the domestic side. I'm really proud. We're going to get to a question from Amanda. But before that, I just want to shout out Congresswoman Barbara Lee. She led 28 of her colleagues, primarily on the progressive side of the ledger, to push a declaration in terms of cutting the Pentagon spending and using some of that money domestically. Congresswoman Barbara Lee is always on the right side when it comes to that. So I just want to shout her out for her leadership. And I think Congressman Pocan was in partnership with her on that. So oftentimes, I will, and you will too, we will critique these folks. So when they do something good, we got to give them an amen. Yeah, let's give them. Thank them for that, for having the courage to push that. Not sure it's going to go anywhere because we have corporatist people from both, in the Congress. We'll just leave that right there. But we do want to shout them out for educating people about why it is so important to take some of that Pentagon money and use it on domestic matters. So thank you, Congress people, for educating us on that. So we have a question, Doc, from Keith. And Keith asks, oh no, let me go to Amanda. I'm sorry, I jumped right down to Keith. Amanda asks, what can we do prior to the Democratic National Convention to ensure the Democratic platform includes improvements on affordable health care in the next administration?
That's an excellent question, Amanda. There's a quote, I forget who says it, but if you want to make peace or bring peace, you don't talk to your friends, you talk to your enemies. And so, yes, it's good to talk to like-minded folks, but we also got to get our demands heard to the people who have the power and are refusing to listen to them. So you need to call your legislators and you need to rally your friends and coworkers and colleagues to write them letters and call them and let them know this is what we need. This isn't even what we want. This is what we need. We're in the middle of a pandemic. People are losing their job. People are losing their health insurance. This is what we need. And if you want to keep your job, this is what you have to deliver to us, or we will make sure that we come out and vote you out. So you have to speak up and speak out to the people in charge and let your wishes be known and plain, and let them know that you are a voter and you will vote them out if you are not heard.
Amen to that. And to make sure that if you are a member in terms of the Democratic, the DNC and that kind of thing, in terms of talking about the platform, because Amanda is talking about that too, that you really lobby those people to make it clear that you want Medicare for all or universal health care to be front and center, because it really does help edify the individual, our community, and this nation. People's health is their wealth. So let's go on and do that. All right, Doc, we have something from Keith, and he asks, since both sides of the aisle are beholden to big insurance and big pharma, how do we get the Democratic establishment to hear us and finally start pushing for Medicare for all and not just continue putting Band-Aids on our health like Obamacare?
Woo. That's $1 million question, Keith. It's tough. It's not going to be easy. We're talking about people who hold billions of dollars, a handful of people who control the wealth and have billions of dollars and don't want to change because they can't afford their health care at the end of the day. Even our legislators and our people in Congress and Senate, they can't afford their medical bills. So they are not experiencing the things that we as everyday people are experiencing every day. And I think we need to be loud and we need to be bold. And what that means to you, you need to dig down in your heart and find out what that means. But eventually they are going to have to, as long as we speak up. What frustrates me is some people say, well, Medicare for all, that's too bold. I really don't think that's possible. So they give up. Well, you got to shoot for the moon and then maybe you'll land at the stars. So when you have your starting point so low, we gonna lower Medicare from 65 to 60. When your starting point is so low, you have nothing to gain. So we do have to think bold, and we do have to be bold. If people were not bold, we would not have the changes that we have today. Imagine if we found out there was a way to free the slaves and everybody was like, you know what, that sounds too hard, too bold. Let's just, I'm not gonna, join this fight to end slavery because it's too bold of a change to happen. Imagine where we would be right now. So we have to be bold in our thinking. Incrementalism is not the way. We have to make it known to politicians that this is our starting point. This is what we have to do. We are not going to vote and fall in line behind people who are throwing us biscuits or donuts, and basically, leaving the majority of people behind. So we just have to have a greater sense of community and purpose. And we need the help of people who do have good health insurance. We need them on our side. So we need to get some allies who can support us, and like-minded individuals.
I totally agree with that. And I want to encourage people to go visit. It's a group, they're called Represent Us. And they do a fantastic job of creating video vignettes about complex issues, from campaign finance reform to who owns the Congress. Very good. Some is 2 minute, 3 minute, all the way up to 30-minute real educational sessions. So please visit Represent Us. And they talk a lot about why the system is rigged, how it is rigged, and then what we can do to unrig it. It is legal to bribe politicians in the United States of America. And that is why we need campaign finance reform. Now, S&T, why are you saying that? I am saying that because lobbyists, yes, it is legal for lobbyists to lobby elected officials on all levels of government, but we're talking about the feds right now because we're talking about the Pentagon budget, the military budget, to lobby them and then donate to them after they've lobbied them on a certain issue. We need campaign finance reform so that is not allowed, so that then politicians will be free. They should be free now, but truly free, yes, to stand up for their constituents. It is so expensive to run for office. So that's a whole nother thing in terms of educating folks. So how can we finally get them to hear us? We got to continue to organize, to not get weary and well doing, to keep your voices out there. The American people, the polls show very clearly that the American people are on our side. They want Medicare for all. So where does your money go, baby? That's what we're talking about. If we as citizens of this country decide that we want our money to go towards universal health care, how about that? and less money to the military industrial complex. We have the power to do that, but it is going to take some organizing to get that done. We have a question from Joe, and Joe asked, how do we stop the war machine? How do we stop the war machine? Joe, you had to ask the hard question. I am going to solicit some help from some folks from the past. And so Asa Philip Randolph said the following: make war unprofitable and you make them impossible.
Yes.
Come on, somebody. So in other words, stop funding these contractors, these war contractors. Stop giving politicians the donations to continue to prop up this system. So all of it is really, really linked. So make war unprofitable and you make them impossible. And the next is from Albert Einstein. He said, you cannot simultaneously prevent and prepare for war. Minister Ice Cream and I talked about these last week. They're just timeless. I mean, that's real. Yeah. And so we have to make sure, yes, we got to protect our country from foreign enemies. We have the firepower to do that. Again, we spend more money than the top 7 countries combined. Nations like China, like the UK, like France. More money than those combined. Notice what I said, combined. The strongest military in the world. We can afford to take some of that $727 billion and reallocate it over there on the domestic side. We can afford to do that. So let's do that. We also have to make sure that politicians that we elect know that we're not for the war machine. We're the bosses. So we need to start acting like we are the boss. I want to put up, Doc, I want to put up a slide. We'll have Edward put up the pie chart first. I want people to I want them to see this so they know that you and I are talking about this issue with the knowledge base. I want them to see it because sometimes seeing is believing. So I want them to see the pie chart. So we'll get that up so they can take a look at that chart to see how it's sliced. We understand the pie. I want you to see that about 61% of that pie is going in one direction, and the direction that it is going into does not help to edify us as a nation. It actually takes from us. So here we go. We're going to get this screen up. So, Doctor, as we're dealing with COVID-19, anytime you and I are together, I always ask you to give people some tips. I know that we've hit the 100,000 death mark.
That's probably a conservative estimate. We think certain states are kind of fooling around with those death numbers, but at least 100,000 deaths. It's pretty disheartening.
Yeah. So what kind of are there any what would you say to people who think, because some people think this is a hoax, they're not taking it seriously, they're gathering, they believe it was made in a lab, or not as many people are dying as they say, they don't have to wear the mask, they don't have to wash their hands so frequently. I know, let me put a disclaimer here that people should go and check their doctor, their medical professional, if they're not feeling well. I'm just asking Dr. Dooley to just give some general, what the CDC and other healthcare professionals have already put out into the world to let people know that this really is real.
Well, there are some conspiracy theorists, but there's other people who just simply are bored of it. They've been in quarantine and they're bored and they're young and they're immature and they're like, they're going to go out and do what they want to do. But the illness is real, and just masks. We think about masks. Everybody knows somebody when they talk, they're constantly spitting, say it, don't spray it. So just imagine all the virus that is coming from somebody when they simply talk. Now let's imagine putting up a barrier. That's the exact same thing that you would do. If somebody was spitting at you, you either go move, social distancing, stay 6 feet away, or you're going to put some type of barrier between you and them. So as they're talking, they're not spitting on you. So of course, a mask is not perfect, but yes, having that barrier between their secretions and yours is absolutely going to be beneficial and to help people. And it's warm. You can go outside and you can exercise and you can have fun and you can be in your mask and you can do it safely, especially in places like Michigan and Ohio where we don't get a lot of sunlight. Yes, it is good to go out and get our vitamin D. And some studies have showed that low vitamin D makes you more likely to, there's association. They don't know if it's causative, but there's association with low vitamin D and more fatal forms of the COVID infection. So absolutely wear your mask. Like I said, it's common sense. When people talk, saliva's coming out. You want to avoid crowds. You are more likely to get COVID if you are in an enclosed place where there's a lot of people and people are singing or talking loud. There's been studies if people are in an exercise class and they're doing yoga and they're quiet and they're calm, they are less likely to spread it than if they're in a loud type of, maybe more jazzier class where everybody's yelling and hooping and hollering, because you're just, the amount of secretions that are coming and the amount of virus that's going to get in the air is going to be a lot more. So you can have fun in the summer and do things, but you want to avoid being indoors with a lot of people for a long time where a lot of people are singing, coughing, talking real loud. Those sorts of activities you want to avoid, because again, you might live through the COVID. The majority of people do, but somebody you know or care about, or somebody that is related to somebody you care about, is not going to have the same good fortune that you have.
And people can be carriers, right, Doc, and not know it.
No symptoms. Why should you wear a mask? You could have COVID right now and not know it. We believe that a large percentage of transmission is from people who don't know that they have it. They are not coming down with the illness. And this is not unheard of. We know that there's certain illnesses, there's other certain viruses that people have asymptomatically. If you think about something like hepatitis A, a lot of times it's spread from nurseries because the infants have it, they don't know. So the care workers and the parents are changing their diapers and then they get it. And that's how we find out that it really was a problem, because the adults got it. So we know there's certain viruses that certain people carry around and really don't have a lot of symptoms, but they give it to other people. So it's not unheard of that COVID does this. So yes, because you could be walking and talking right now, you and I could have COVID and not know it. That's the importance of masks.
And that's called being asymptomatic?
Asymptomatic. Without symptoms. You could be asymptomatic carrier. You could be fine, but you could pass it on to somebody who's not going to be fine.
So you're not only protecting yourself, you're doing this for the people you love and maybe even some people you don't love. You're really doing it for humanity, to make sure that you wear your mask and stay at least 6 feet away.
Exactly.
And as far as conspiracy theories, please don't do it. We got enough to deal with this for folks putting out all kinds of foolishness, including, well, I'm gonna go and leave that alone. Don't drink no bleach. Let me just say that. Lord, have mercy on our souls. So yes, take care of yourself, be safe and healthy. And the life you save may very well not only be your own, but somebody that you love. And it's a minor inconvenience to do a great deed.
It's a war. We're at a war, and all you have to do is wear a mask and social distance. It's the easiest war to be in if you just do what you're supposed to do. And again, you can go outside, you can take a walk. You don't have to be scared of going outside, but wear your mask and be responsible. Don't be indoors with a whole bunch of people who are talking loud. Just don't do it.
Yeah, please don't do it. We're gonna get through this. There's promise in the problem.
Yes.
We're gonna get through this. All right, we have something good, Doc. This is from Laura, and she says, she doesn't have a question, she's making a statement. Hello, somebody. As a veteran for peace, I am very grateful for this live stream. Thank you, drop the mic. Come on, somebody. Thank you, drop the mic. Thank you so much for being a veteran. Thank you for your service to us and to our country and for standing up for peace. Who knows the impact of war than veterans? And so I really do appreciate, we appreciate you, Laura. So
thank you.
Thank you, Terry.
Protect our country, and we can protect our country. So we can protect our country from foreigners, and we can protect our citizens from things like homelessness. We can protect our citizens from things like uninsurance. So we can do both. We can afford both. The wealth is not the issue. The issue is the mindset of the people that we put in charge, and the system of campaign finance that we have. So we can do both. We can do both things. We can walk and chew gum. We can protect ourselves from enemies, and we can protect ourselves from the top 0.1% who refuses to let us have basic rights, basic needs. People need healthcare. People need a house. These things are connected. Of course, you are not going to be healthy if you don't make enough money to live in a safe environment. Of course, you're not going to be healthy if your neighborhood allows fracking waste and the majority of your zip code comes down with cancer because of all these cancer-causing substances that somebody was bribed to let dump in your neighborhood. They don't dump that waste in poor, affluent white neighborhoods. They dump that waste in poor Black and brown communities. So we can afford to do both. We can protect ourselves. We are not saying we don't need any military. We can't protect ourselves. We can protect ourselves from enemies, and we can protect ourselves from our enemies here at home who are not just giving us a basic right to not die from illnesses that are too expensive for us to afford. And it is not our fault. If you right now are struggling with healthcare costs, it ain't your fault. It is not your fault. It's the fault of healthcare companies. It's the fault of bought politicians. It's the fault of this rigged system that you cannot afford your healthcare costs, because we pay more than any other country in the world and we get less. It is not your fault.
Not your tagline for Friday. It is not your fault. We should not commodify healthcare. Just bottom line. Should not commodify healthcare. Your health is your wealth. So as the good doctor has just laid out, we can protect our country and protect our country. Hello, somebody. It's not your fault, and we can protect our country and protect our country. That is Friday night. That's it for Friday night. You know what? Our veteran, wonderful veteran, Laura, reminded me, Doc, of an organization I was thinking of when she said, as a veteran for peace, there's an organization called peaceaction.org that I would like to encourage people to go and visit. They have lots of great stats and also graphs and things to help you understand why it is that we absolutely should not be spending the type of money that we are spending on the Pentagon. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, we are neglecting every other necessity of life. So we, on that one end, it's skewed too much. So please visit peaceaction.org. Do not forget to follow us on Twitter at Drop the Mic 2020, baby. Do that. And right here on Facebook, don't you leave this Facebook Live without making sure that you like and follow us right here on Facebook at Drop the Mic 2020, baby. All right, boom, yes. We have a question. I think, is this from Joe? Joe asks, are most hospitals financially sound? My daughter is a resident in dermatology, and they warned if they get sick, they will not get sick pay. Oh my God, a doctor not getting sick pay, doctor? Seriously?
Joe, that's horrible. It's a reality I'm seeing with some of my colleagues, and even some of my loved ones have who work in healthcare have gotten sick. But because this COVID coronavirus test we have is not 100% accurate, it could be falsely negative at least 30% of the time. So they're sicker than they've ever been. They go get their COVID test is negative. So their hospital says, we'll pay you if you get COVID, but your test was negative, so we're not gonna pay you. Even though you have all the symptoms of COVID, if it walks like a duck, it talks like a duck, it is a duck, it's not the fault, it's the fault of the test. They're not acknowledging that, hey, yeah, you could have COVID, but the test could be falsely negative. So it's happening to all my colleagues. Not only that, pay cuts. I have a friend who's an essential worker at a hospital, got a pay cut, came home, opened up the mail, had oh, thank you for being an essential worker, $50 gift card. You just cut my pay by like 15%. And then you're going to tell me you appreciate me and give me a $50 gift card? It's insane. So are hospitals financially sound? It's a complicated question. It depends on the hospital and their how much they're paying their CEOs, how many administrators they cost. People don't realize that a ton of the money that we waste in healthcare is for these hospital administrators. And what do they have to do? They have to navigate these hundreds of different healthcare plans, because at the end of the day, the insurance company, they don't want to pay you, right? So they have all these different rules of how you have to bill things and all these different boxes that you have to check, and you have to keep up with it or they're going to deny your claim. So we have all these healthcare administrators in the mix. And that's the way we can trim a lot of the fat. If everybody has one single universal healthcare system, all the rules are the same for billing everybody, you know what's covering, what's not, and we're going to cover almost everything except for maybe plastic surgery, then you can trim all this fat and lean it out, and hospitals can be more sound than they are. You don't have big mega corporations coming into rural areas and buying up those rural hospitals and then closing them when they found out they're not profitable, because in rural areas, the population is not as dense. And so since you don't have the volume that you need, they're going and buying these hospitals and closing them down. There are people who are pregnant in rural areas of this country. In the United States of America, pregnant, have to travel an hour to get to their OB-GYN. And then what do? If this is your second or third pregnancy, baby might come quick. You might not even have time to get to the hospital because some mega corporation has came in, bought your small hospital and closed it down when it wasn't as profitable and said, you got to come down to suburbia and get your care where it's more profitable for us. So some hospitals are struggling and some of it boils down to greed. I want to see how much are some of these hospitals paying their CEOs? Have they laid off any of their, some of these administrators that we really don't need? Have they laid them off? Has a CEO taken a pay cut? So yeah, we are not treating any of our essential workers correctly, from people who work at the gas station or the grocery store to people in healthcare during this pandemic. We are not treating any of our essential workers like the essential people that they need, and that is wrong. They don't care. They don't care about us. When we didn't have masks, they changed the rules. Okay, you can wear a homemade mask, and then some hospitals were saying, don't wear a mask because you're going to scare patients. They do, at the end of the day, they don't care about you. And that's why we need a system that we're all in this together. Medicare for All says we're all in this together. We are all human beings. Whatever happens to any of us, we're all going to be taken care of. And we need to have that sense of humanity and community. We are all in this together. We're going to care about everybody and make sure that everybody has basic things that they need.
Amen to that. We are all in this together. Reminded me of a song by Michael Jackson. They don't really care about us.
They don't really care about us.
Yeah, wow. It's but we care about us, and that's why we're dropping the mic tonight on a Friday night in May. Dropping the mic, talking about the military-industrial complex. Where does all the damn money go? Inquiring minds want to know. Well, 61% of the discretionary budget goes towards the Pentagon. We want to educate you on that because that is indeed our money. Our money.
And all that money is supposed to be keeping us safe. There was a lot of people this past week who weren't safe.
And Doc, that is a great segue as you talk about military industrial complex. It is the same formula, whether it is fighting abroad or fighting right here at home, the militarization of our police. And what is happening to Black people, particularly Black men right now, are being hunted down in damn United States of America. I'm trying to figure out, are we in the 21st century or the 18th century? Some days I don't know. And Doc, you have sons as I have a son. And this is exhausting. It is.
It is exhausting. I worry about my kids when they're young, at the age they are now. They're just teenagers. My baby just turned 13. Happy birthday, baby.
Happy birthday, baby.
So I worry about them because where we live, there's a lot of they have a lot of white friends, and their white friends are going to be able to get away with doing some teenage stuff that my boys aren't going to be able to get away with because they're Black and they're big boys, and that's all because they're Black. So having to explain to my babies, yeah, Timmy might have been doing XYZ, but at the end of the day, if something goes down, you're going to be the one who gets in trouble. Even if you're just observing it, some way it's going to come down on you. What's the difference between you and Timmy? All it is your skin color, baby. So I have to have those conversations with my babies, and then worrying about them becoming a man. It's like, it's tough. I just want my babies to be safe and happy and healthy. And the current state of things in this country, it's hard. Rich Black kids are more likely to end up in jail than poor white. So not even money can shield you from racism in America. It shouldn't, but like I said, not even money. Rich Black kids are more likely than poor white to go to jail. So it's just tough. It's tough to be a mother of Black boys, and I don't know if I would do it again.
Yeah, it's agonizing, and we're trying to keep this as PG as we can. I have cried doing interviews. I have agonized, tossing and turning all night long. This repeat performance of this, not only just systemic racism rooted in the system, in the DNA of the United States of America. Let's go on and get that straight. But the anti-Blackness to go along with the racism. And Doc, I'm like you, I feel the same way, about my son, who is a grown man right now, but still my baby. I call him my baby, even to this, to the day I die, he will be my baby. And he is in law enforcement. So I see this from both sides as a mother of a millennial son, but then also a son that works in law enforcement. And the police officers that do this kind of thing. And I want to shout out Chief Roddy. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, from Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Chief took to Twitter and he said the following word, y'all know how I feel about, don't just be a Twitter warrior. Now, Twitter and social media is really good. We get our messages out. But the question becomes, what are you going to do to make this world a better place? Where you at, what you have, what are you going to do besides just social media protests?
Yes.
However, it's a tool and we use it. I mean, we all use it. So I'm not, casting shade on it. But this chief basically said that if you do not have a problem with the way Mr. Floyd died, you need to turn in your badge. Come on. I mean, that just broke that all the way down. Turn in your badge. And let that be a message to all law enforcement agencies. They need to take on what this chief took on in Tennessee. That if you don't have a problem with it, you ought not be a police officer. The struggle is real. And when I was coming up, well, I might have been more of an adult at the time, but there was a saying, it's a Black thing you wouldn't understand. So I implore our sisters and brothers of other ethnicities to at least try. Mm-hmm. And this is not just about what happened to Mr. Floyd or even Mr. Cooper, Christian Cooper in New York. Brother can't even, ride the bike or walk in the park.
They're birds in the park. It's just the white people calling the cops on Black people for doing everyday things. Because they know it's not a crime. These people are not stupid. They know it is not a crime to ask somebody to put their dog on the leash. They know it's not a crime to barbecue. So these are not stupid people. Just the audacity and the amount of hate it takes to call the police on somebody when the only reason you can be doing it is that you hope the police hurt, harm, or kill the person. I can't imagine the amount of hate that it must take to hold in your heart to think like that. Because these people know that what these Black men were doing, there were no crimes. There's no crime to barbecue. There's no crime to jog. It is no crime to exercise in the exercise room of your own apartment complex. It's no crime to bird watch. But when you're Black, there's people who have so much hate for people of color in their heart that they pick up the phone and they call the police with one intent. They're hoping that the police come and kill or hurt this person of color. I can't imagine how people can live carrying that much hate in their heart. I can't. But there's too many people out there who are willing to call the police on Black men for doing everyday things that they and their children and their loved ones do every day. And it needs to stop.
Definitely needs to stop. Weaponizing the police. And this woman was very clear. You know, I think she almost forgot she was being recorded because she put on a performance is what she did. And she needs to go to jail too. I mean, we need to introduce some laws in this country on the local, state, and federal level that make consequences for people doing what she did. She said very clear, I'm gonna call the police and tell them that a Black man, she said that a couple of times, maybe a few, couple is two, but at least twice. Then she started fake crime. I mean, when I saw that video, it took everything that I had. And it's been hard. I mean, just absolutely triggered every single day. You know, Ice Cube, the rapper, has a lyric about, you know, our skin being our sin. Mm-hmm. And there have been several rappers who have really talked about this in a very raw way over the years, the history of hip hop, making it plain. And it's just overwhelming. I'm like you. I mean, I'm scared about my baby all the time. I'm scared for myself, you know. I mean, even with my stature right now, I still walk around the store making sure that I'm keeping the products where they can see them, you know, because I always thinking somebody's suspecting I'm stealing something because I'm a Black woman, even to this damn day, because it's programmed into me.
It is.
I don't even pull my phone out, you know, my purse. I make sure I do it in a very open way so they don't think I'm shoplifting. That is something that is ingrained in us. And so the mental health, I want us to get to that, because these macro and micro aggressions that Black people have to endure every single day. It's not just what happened to Mr. Floyd or even Miss Taylor in Kentucky shot in her own house, or Trayvon Martin or Tamir Rice or Diallo, you know, in the 90s. I mean, it is all of these things. It's Emmett Till didn't have a smartphone. They don't get it. People just do not get it. And I'm not just talking about, we need allies from all walks of life and all classes too. We need people in the upper echelons of society to care. We need people who are not Black to care, because anti-Blackness is not just white folks. We got Hispanic folks, we got Asian folks, anybody can be anti-Black.
We have people who are part Black, but who don't look it, who are
right.
Black. It goes deep.
So Doc, can you talk a little bit about the mental? So again, dropping the mic, we're dropping the mic in several ways. And I really do appreciate, you know, what Ben Cohen has built here, and the understanding that these types of issues are important. The military industrial complex, both domestic and our domestic uses of that kind of force, state violence, whether it's state violence directed to other countries or state violence right here at home on this soil, is wrong. So Doc, some of the mental health machinations that African Americans have to go through on a regular basis, and what can people do to do a little self-care, kind of, you know, bring it down?
Well, just to put it into perspective for some people who might not be watching, who aren't people of color, I saw somebody posted on Facebook, you know, they were pulled over by the cops, and, you know, the cop was on edge. You know, he said, we're on edge right now. We're kind of fearful for our lives right now. There was a cop who wasn't a Black cop. And so they might have legitimate reasons to be fearful for their life being a cop right now. But imagine being a Black person and having that same amount of fear every single day of your life. Imagine what that does to your body. Biochemically, it ages us faster. That's why part of the reasons, all the stressors we have to bear, Black women, 50% of Black women over the age of 19 have some form of heart disease, whether it be high blood pressure, just some form of heart disease. 50%, 1 out of 2. We're 2 Black women right here. 50% of Black women have some form of heart disease. It puts a lot of stress on us physically and emotionally. Your body was not made to be in the fight or flight. We talk about fight, wound up on edge, stressed out. Your body was not made to be in that state forever. And it damages our blood vessels, our biology, and it damages our mental health. And so what do we do in this country? Well, we piecemeal healthcare. You got one piece of healthcare that's for your body, for most of your body. You have this other part of your healthcare that's for your mental health. If you're lucky or fortunate, you have another part for your dental and vision, right? So we don't acknowledge that we are more than just the sum of our parts. We have to take care of the whole mind, body, spirit. And I don't care what you believe in, but we are more than just our bodies. And so that's why we need to guarantee that every person in this country who needs any type of healthcare, whether it be for their vision or for their dental or for their mental health, they will get the care that they need. So what do we do in this country if somebody gets COVID? People who get COVID, some people who are out of the hospital are left with months and months, because this illness is still new, of suffering from the consequences. Our lovely sister Corey Bush, she just didn't feel right for weeks afterwards. Just was did not understand what was going on with their body. So let's say your COVID care is covered because you have health insurance. What about your mental health? That's not going to be covered because it's related to COVID. So anytime you go to see a mental health therapist, you might have to pay $50, $60 out of pocket. Your doctor tells you, somebody like me comes along and says, you know what, I want you to go talk to somebody. Just talk to somebody once a week. You're looking at, that could cost you $200, $250 a month just to talk to somebody to get your mental health in order. We need universal health care in this country. It needs to cover mental health. Mental health is health. Dental health is health. Vision health is health. It needs to be comprehensive, and anybody who needs help that they need should be able to get that. There's so much stigma regarding mental illness in this country. That's one obstacle. And then we add another layer of obstacles to it with the cost. We put up these extra obstacles to get people the care that they need. And that is not right. That is not the way it should be. And with everything that's going on with this country, all of us could benefit from some mental health care. I'm a big advocate of mental health, and I tell patients, I believe that everybody can benefit from mental health. I think sometimes you just need to talk to somebody who knows a little bit more about mental health than you. That doesn't mean that you're crazy. That doesn't mean that you're going to need to talk to a mental health therapist forever. That's just seeking expertise. That's a smart thing to do, to seek expertise from somebody who knows more about a topic than you. That is a right and smart thing to do. So we need to stop putting these layers upon layers of barriers on people to get the health care that they need.
And we can afford to do that.
We can.
All we got to do is take some of that 61%.
Our money, where our money is spent.
That's right, social contract. So Justin is asking, is there any plan to make law enforcement training be at least 2.5 years? Justin, that varies by state and local municipality, but that is something to think about. And maybe even if it's not just, I have these conversations with my son, and my husband is also a retired police officer, about what that type of training looks like. Training should be ongoing. A lot of states do train every single year, but we need some implicit bias training. Implicit cognitive bias is real. These beliefs that we bring to the table, these certain stereotypes that we bring, and it is in your subconscious. You just do it automatically because of the way that we've been socialized in the United States of America. And we've all been socialized the same way, whether we are Black or white or Latinx, you name it, we've been socialized a certain way. And unless we deconstruct our construction and see the light, we all have a propensity to see Black people that way, have to deconstruct the construction. This is not just about how individuals feel about Black people. This is how the system feels about Black people, and then how it is meted out in injustice via death or being given a longer sentence than your white counterparts and other counterparts. I want to recommend a book. It is called Democracy in Black. It was written by Dr. Eddie Glaude. And in this book, he was motivated to write this book for several reasons. Ferguson was one of those reasons, but he talks about the value gap, the whole notion that white life matters more than anybody else's. And then the racial value that we put. It is a fascinating read. And then another one I want to recommend was written by Dr. Crystal Fleming, titled How to Be Less Stupid About Race. Now, these books in and of themselves, you're not going to change everything. But if each individual would do their part, which leads me to our last question for tonight, Doc. This is from Sierra Williams, and she says, hi, Senator Turner and Dr. Dooley. What are some ways I can get involved besides protesting, signing petitions, and making calls? And that is a very good question. All three of those things are very good, Sierra. We just want to lay it out, especially in light of COVID.
Yes.
You know, well, people taking to the streets. I understand because people mad as hell and they're just not going to take it anymore. Right. But in terms of being safe, you know, for your health in COVID, making calls and signing petitions is good. Reading books and educating yourselves on these issues is good. Reaching out and touching somebody, not physically, but having the conversations about why what is going on in this country is wrong. You can run for office. I mean, there are all kinds of things that you do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead, Doc.
You educated me on a couple organizations earlier. I had taken notes on my iPad, which just went dead, but there was two organizations that you had mentioned that I wrote down. ESA, of course, Sunrise Movement, and not forgetting to take care. We were just talking about mental health. To take care of yourself. To take a break from social media every now and then. Yeah. I've been on it less than I had this past couple of days, and I usually am. I didn't want to go on it at all, but I wanted to be informed to have this wonderful conversation with you today, because it just gets too heavy and it gets too much. So with everything you do, remember to make time for yourself, to be easy on yourself, especially during this pandemic when people are getting cabin fever and getting a little bit frustrated with saying it. Be easy with yourself, be patient with yourself, be kind with yourself, meditate, exercise. You don't have to leave the house to exercise. You can if you wear a mask and you go somewhere that's not crowded, but you can exercise at home. You can go up and down the stairs in your home. My lazy size, I exercise around the house. I don't like going to the gym, getting showered, get back in your car, especially in the winter. So I do exercises around the house. Especially if you have the internet, you can pull up a video. You can pull up a video for exercises, no equipment. So you can just use your chair and your couch and things around home. So just because gyms are not open, if exercise is what gets you going and improves your mood, just because the gyms are not open does not mean you can't exercise, which those one protester showed us when they were protesting. The gym was not open, and I think they were out doing jumping jacks. You just proved you don't need a gym to do exercise. So it's important to remember to take care of yourself. It's good to be socially conscious and to take care of others, but you got to fill your own bucket, or you won't have anything to fill other people's buckets.
Absolutely. Keep a journal too. That's often a good therapeutic way to relieve some of the stress.
Absolutely.
So to me, that is a great question to end on. We all can do something, do what we can, where we are, with what we have. We all can do something. To quote the great Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, service is the price that we pay. The rent that we pay for our time here on earth. Yes. That might not be verbatim, but baby, that's a beautiful thing. And then the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, we all can be great because we all can serve. As our good doctor said, though, you got to take care of yourself. When you're flying on planes, and they said if those masks drop down, put it on yourself first before you put it on somebody else. Just having a consciousness and awareness too, and a heart for people, some compassion, even if you can't walk in the shoes of another. Being able to try to have the requisite compassion that is necessary to understand. Stephen Covey once said, seek first to be understood, seek first to understand and then to be understood. And we need a lot more of that. We need co-conspirators and we need allies for a time such as this. Yeah. Black men are being hunted, really. And if some people don't like that language, so what? What happened to Mr. Floyd was modern day lynching, straight up. Wow. That police officer put his knee in Mr. Floyd's neck and kept his hands in his pockets like he was walking down the damn street. That's real. Amy, I think her name is in New York, didn't like what Mr. Christian Cooper had to say. I'm going to call the police on you. I'm going to tell them that you are a Black man. Or African-American, whichever one, but she just made it clear. And you know why she did that? Because she knows that the system will respond differently if you say it's a damn Black man. She knew that. That wasn't by accident. She put emphasis on that thing before she started fake crying. Emmett Till dead to this, well, to this day, but it was in the 50s, but.
Because a white woman lied.
Lied. Flat out. The same way Amy did. And thank God Almighty. But why is it that Black folks need, we always got to validate. Think about that. I want y'all to wrap your minds around that. We got to have witnesses. Mm-hmm. Thank God we got this has to be the witness, because if he had not had that, it would have turned out differently. And the same thing for Mr. Floyd, because the police officers had already said that he was resisting arrest, which was a lie.
You ain't resisting nothing when you're on the ground and you can't breathe.
Can't and got your hands handcuffed. Something is definitely wrong with the United States of America right now, that in the 21st century, we are going all the way back, and it's untenable. We cannot tolerate it. So everybody, please get involved. Not only know where your money is going, but understand how to connect with people to stand up for what is right, for what is just, and what is good, because we cannot keep on repeating this every generation, every decade, every year, and then people act shocked when they see the video. You knew this was going. Ask a Black person, phone a friend. We'll tell you. Like, it ain't never stopped. Never. It don't matter how many degrees you have.
On video more.
Right.
It's not new.
Not new.
The technology to record it is fairly new, but this is not new.
Come on. And when officers do things like that, they put good officers in peril.
They do.
I.e., so I'm extra worried about my son right now. Jesus, Mary and Joseph. Doc, take us on something positive. We got it off our chest. So we talked about the military-industrial complex. Drop the mic, 2020. Let's go and put some of that money on the domestic side of the ledger. We previewed why universal health care is necessary and how we can use some of that money to fund universal health care in the United States of America. And we also talked about the militarization on the domestic side and how we can, again, use some of that money for not just training and programs, but we need to pass laws and policies, not just for law enforcement, but for everyday citizens. We need to research what's on the books right now on the federal level and use the full force and weight of the federal government. And then we need to write new laws that don't allow Amy to do what she did without consequence. There needs to be a consequence for what she did. Hello, somebody. Doc, come on, we're gonna go on the positive train. Now it's hard to do, but I like, that's how we roll.
I don't have a positive.
I
tell people not to lose hope.
There we go.
Change is not coming as soon as we would like it. But if you think about the things that we've accomplished in the history of this United States, from free and slavery to getting Medicare. There was a time when Medicare in its existing form did not exist. And of course, people of color and poor people were disproportionately affected with this employer-based insurance because they didn't let people of color have jobs, gay marriage. So we have made strides, and they never come as quick as we would like them, but we have to not lose hope and to believe that better things are coming, and to stay active and to believe that we're going to live to see Medicare for all. Because again, we have the money to take care of ourselves and to take care of ourselves from people abroad, and to take care of ourselves for the people here living in the United States, to give people health care, to give people living wage, to make sure we don't have homelessness. We have the money. We just have to have the hope and to continue to organize, and it will happen. It will.
It will happen. There is promise in the problem. We got to take this moment, as heavy as it is, and make some good come out of this. That means that we should never ever go back to the way that things were, not just on the global military industrial complex. Where does your money go? Where does our money go? But also what Dr. Dooley and I are talking about right now. Don't let the deaths of these folks be in vain. Our sisters and brothers be in vain. And don't let what happened to Mr. Cooper, thank God he didn't die, don't let that be in vain. We cannot tolerate, it is intolerable. It is, and we can't do that. Promising the problem. I want to quote the great Mahatma Gandhi. Doc is absolutely right. It's kind of hard to find, but we always going to search for something. Promising the problem, but he once said, be the change that you want to see in the world. That's empowering, that you be the change. If all of us, imagine if 10 of us, 20 of us, 30 of us, hundreds of us, thousands of us, then millions of us decided to be the change that we wanted to see in the world, baby. Hello, somebody. What kind of world will we be? Be the change that we want to see in the world. Do not forget to follow us on Twitter at Drop the Mic 2020, on Facebook at Drop the Mic 2020. We will see you again next week. It will be on Thursday night, 7:00 p.m. Come Facebook Live, baby. And throughout the early part of the week, you will see yours truly either with a guest or flying solo, baby. Get the pump primed for Thursday night. Do what you can, where you are, what you have. Try to keep the faith. We know it's hard. Keep the fight and keep the faith. We are going to get through this. The question becomes, what are you going to do to make sure that we get through this differently than how it started? Good night, everybody. Have a great weekend and take care of yourself. Doc, thank you.
Change. Thank you.
Change. Bye.